Welcome back into Exit 99 Sports. As always, my name is Caleb Deloach, and we are rocking and rolling right now. Spring sports, baseball, kind of some teams are solidifying kind of their identity early in the season here. Still pretty early in the year for a lot of other sports. Some teams only have a couple games as far as like girls soccer. Some teams have only played a couple games, or boys volleyball still really ramping up, things like that. But yeah, we are right here, right in the middle of early, the early part of the season for everybody in each of their sports. So, like I said, teams are kind of feeling out where they're at. Coaches are making adjustments, things of that nature, trying to figure out how teams can kind of ramp up as they head into, the back end of the schedule. Try to get ready, try to be peaking at the right time. But we got a while until we start talking about the postseason or anything like that. As far as the spring sports calendar goes, we will jump in and talk about baseball. So we're going to talk about last week's games across all sports, baseball, soccer, tennis, etc. Then we'll go ahead and get into what all we got going on next or this week right now that we are in, and talk about a couple of extra things here on the end, tack in a couple of random thoughts I got. So with that said, we will start back last Monday, March 30th. Boys baseball. We had a pretty busy day. A lot of big numbers put up on the board for our local teams. Jackson defeated Dexter, got a SEMO Conference win, beat them 10-0, blowout victory for the Indians. Carter Shipman got to start for the Indians, pitched really well, 5 innings, only gave up 1 hit, struck out 11. Dawson Eftine, Keegan Bregman combined, they had, half the runs batted in for the Indians. Eftine going 3 for 4. Bregman had 3 RBIs, going 2 for 4. So good day at the plate for the Indians. Kind of a dominant, what you expect, performance against, Dexter team that the Indians would be greatly favored against. Nice win, though, for the Notre Dame Bulldogs. They won 9-6 over Festus. This is a Festus team that has been phenomenal in recent years. Festus, if I recall, they just won a state title, I think 2 seasons ago in boys baseball. Yeah, or excuse me, that was 2023, so 22-23. Okay, the past doesn't feel that long ago the older you get, so excuse me on that. But yeah, 2022-23, I mean, they won 27 games, won a state title. 24, they went 25-8 last year. I mean, they made a run. They won the district, and we're a very, very good baseball team. But so this is a nice win for Notre Dame here early in the season. The Bulldogs, behind the curtain here, this is a Monday, right in the middle of them playing Campbell here, a late add to their schedule. So, mind you, so let's say they're beating Campbell right now, which they are 7-3. Like I'm live, so the outcome of that. But a really strong start to the year with the win over Campbell. Puts Notre Dame at 8-4. They've lost to some pretty good teams here early in the season, and they're playing pretty well. They got some kids that are hitting really well. One of those is in that ball game, Peyton Duncan. He went 3 for 3, walked, had 5 RBIs in the ball game. He put up 5 RBIs out of Notre Dame's 9 runs they had. Also got in, pitched a little bit, pitched 2 innings, gave up 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and closed out that ball game for Notre Dame. So big day for Peyton Duncan. He's playing well. TJ Boland's playing well. Lawson's playing well. A lot of guys are hitting really well here early in the season for the Bulldogs. And then finally, Cape Central that evening, they went and blew out Kennett 11-0. Jathan Spain doing kind of what you expect there, 3 for 4, 5 RBIs. One of them, or a couple of those coming off of a home run for Spain. I believe that technically was the game-ending home run to give them the run rule victory. Chapman Ogles, as he has been all year, lights out. 5 innings pitched, 7 Ks, only gave up 2 hits. He's having a really strong start to the season. He's had some dominant performances. I recall a game against Farmington where I think he held them to no runs. They won 1-0. I think he struck out 11, 12, something like that. So really, really good start to the year for Ogles and this Cape Central team. Right now I have them at 6-2 on the season. 2 losses, both on the road. One against a really good McCracken County team. The other one up at North County, a solid squad up there as well. So good start to the year for the Tigers. New another new coaching staff in there this season. So they have the kids playing well. This is a team that I have pretty good expectations out of. I think this year especially they can be pretty darn good because of that senior class is talented. I mean, I mentioned it, Spain, Ogles, Bowers. I'm going to miss people. Like Chenoweth. There's a ton of guys there in that senior class that are playing well here early on that have made a big impact, over the last several years, but this year especially. Look, I'm not going to miss anybody because now I have the list pulled up. I said Bowers, Chenoweth, Zaid Hickey has played well. Christian McNew has had some big hits. Chapman Ogles, Connor Poole, Jathan Spain I mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, this senior group is really talented. They do have some younger guys, some non-seniors that are making an impact here early. Wasco, McGuire, they've made plays, had big hits, big moments. So this is a really strong team. I like this Cape team. They're going to finish up near the top of the SEMO Conference this year. Then on Tuesday, Saxony continues their hilarious offensive output on the season. They are, like I said, at time of recording, they are 4-1. They beat East Prairie 17-0. Look at these scores. Their wins, they're 4-1, 15-0. They beat Fredericktown. They beat Meadow Heights 18-8. They beat Leopold 10-2, and they beat East Prairie 17-0. And their one loss was losing to Scott City 9-2. So every game they play is going to have a lot of offense, apparently, by one team or the other. It does not matter. So we'll see how that continues. They have several games this week I'll talk about here in a minute, but they are putting up some big numbers. Zach Roth got to start in that game. He went 5 innings, gave up no hits, 10 Ks. A great game by him. Baylor Wilson went 3 for 3. He came around to score all 3 times. Seth Stageberg had 3 RBIs in the game. So they're hitting really, really well. And the pitching, doing all right here. They've had some good moments here. Roth with a big game against East Prairie. And then, like I mentioned, Cape Central coming up short there against North County. Their first loss of the season was 8-4 against the Raiders. The Raiders are pretty good team up there in North County, in that ball game. They just got hit early. Hickey had to start. Got a lot of guys on base, couldn't get out of the innings there early on. Outside of that, they were held to only 4 hits. They struck out 7 times as a team. And, yeah, tough ball game, but overall a good start to the year for the Tigers. Then moving into Wednesday, Jackson took on Farmington. They won that 12-5. Matt Carter continues a really hot start to the season. He had a home run. He had a double, finished 3 for 4, 3 RBIs. Dawson Eftink also hitting really well early. He had 3 RBIs on the ball game. Drew Parsons, he got the start. Went 4 innings, struck out 9 guys. Gave up 3 earned runs, 3 walks. And then Nolan Atkinson came in, shut the door, pitched 2 1/3. Only gave up 1 hit and did a great job, getting outs. Only had 1 strikeout, but gave up soft contact. Defense did the work they need to do, and Jackson continues to roll here early in the season. Notre Dame, then they lost a home ball game against Gateway Legacy. Gateway is one of those schools I don't know much about. I don't see them in most sports. They always come down here about once or twice a year to play a basketball game or baseball in this instance. And, they were lights out. They had starting pitchers that, could throw really, really good high heat and made Notre Dame chase a lot of balls out of the zone. In that, the Bulldogs only had 2 hits. They struck out 11 times in that game. TJ Boland pitched well. He went 4 innings, only gave up 1 earned, 3 Ks, 2 walks. Jack Jansen came in, also pitched well, 2 innings. He struck out 5 in 2 innings. So overall, Notre Dame they pitched well, but outside of that, the bats just could not get going. Also, that same day, the Cape Central Tigers back in action, went to Kelly, snuck out of Kelly with a 1-run victory, 3-2 over the Hawks. Caden Chenoweth pitched well. 11 Ks in 7 innings, only gave up 1 earned. And Aiden McGuire, shout out to quarterback, game-winning hit in the top of the 8th to give them the victory over Kelly. Then the Jackson Indians, they were supposed to be playing Saturday. They pushed their game up to Friday due to some rain that was coming into the area, I believe. And they had a doubleheader. They played Edwardsville, or I think it was they played, and the other 2 teams there, Edwardsville and Eureka played, and then Jackson played Eureka. So in the first ball game, Jackson took on Edwardsville, lost that one 4-2. They were held to only 3 hits, struck out 12 times. But I think I mentioned in the last podcast, this Edwardsville team, super talented. year in and year out, one of the best in the state of Illinois. They've won a couple state titles in the last several years. So really, really tough opponent. It's a team Jackson has kind of gotten in the rotation here where they play quite a bit, and they've had some success against them. They played them a couple times, I believe, at Busch Stadium. I think they blew them out, and that really was a head turner. The year that Jackson went to their first ever state semifinals a few years ago was Caden Bogenpool and company. So Edwardsville, really, really good measuring stick for the Indians, but Jackson comes up short 4-2. Then in the second ball game of the day, they took on Eureka, another tough opponent. Eureka's really good, solid, really talented year in and year out. They send guys to the next level pretty consistently. The whole St. Louis, suburban St. Louis ring around the city, really, really good at baseball. I mean, the St. Louis area, gets known for some high-level football maybe, the CBCs, DeSmets of the world, basketball at times, kind of those same private schools. There's public schools here and there that are really, really special. But as far as talent goes, pure college talent, things like that, baseball is probably where St. Louis excels the most. It might not get talked about a lot, but they put out some dudes, and Eureka no exception. Jackson, though, comes up with a big win, 6-2 over Eureka. They blew the game open there in the sixth inning. They had a 4-run sixth, gave them the win. Dawson F-Tink, he hit a home run, continuing, like I said, a really, really good start to the year for F-Tink. And Brody Meyer had the start. Strong start. 5 1/3, struck out 8, only gave up 1 earned, 4 hits. So good showing by the Indians. And, they started the season really strong at time of recording. They are 9-1, that one loss, like I mentioned, to Edwardsville. Outside of that, they've beaten some good teams. They went up, they beat Zumwalt North, Battle, Parkway Central, SLU High, who they're going to see again in a few weeks. Really, really good. They have a kid going to Oklahoma, stuff like that. Took care of local competition, Sykes and Dexter, Kelly, Farmington, and playing tough teams once again. They're going to be busy again this week, which I'll talk about shortly as well. We'll flip this page now, girls soccer, all the way back last week, Tuesday, March 31st. Get started there. We had 3 teams in action. We had all 4 teams in action because Jackson and Saxony played each other over at Jackson. And the Indians shut them out 8-0. I believe that they got the win with still about 25 minutes left on the clock, if memory serves. And man, we talked about Jackson girls basketball being young and talented this year, having all these freshmen and sophomores really putting up, playing well, putting up big numbers. This year, soccer doesn't look to be much different, and some familiar names to basketball as well. Out of those 8 goals, 4 of them were scored by the freshman Adeline Abernathy. Like I said, a baller also on the court. Sophomore Addison Crooks, she had 2 of the goals, and then Bryn Banderman, another freshman, and Rudy Klun, senior, had the other 2 goals there. And yeah, Jackson, really, really strong, group of freshmen, sophomores, things like that. Across the board in all sports. I talk about a little bit of everything, track and field. There's some really young kids that are stepping up. Basketball, we talked about it all year. Now soccer, I'm sure there's more that's not coming to me immediately, but yeah, overall, this freshman class, sophomore class, things like that are super strong. You got both Abernathys I mentioned playing big roles. Bryn Banderman I mentioned as well already. Addison Crooks, Reagan Gwynn, a sophomore. A lot of young talent on Jackson, but a solid, strong senior class. Ashland Dawes, I mentioned Klund, Emma Larson, Josie Sauerbrunn, Maddie Stelling. These girls bring a lot of experience, some multi-sport athletes, things like that, who are really, really tough, really strong senior leaders on this team. So, it's Jackson girls soccer. They rarely have down years. They're rarely, rebuilding, things like that, and they just keep reloading with talented kids year in and year out. At time of recording, I keep saying it, I think Jackson is playing right now as I'm talking to you. They're playing Lindbergh. So, I'll talk about that game coming up. That's going to be a really big indicator of where Jackson's at here early in the season. Lindbergh, a district team, really, really talented, traditionally really solid. Have a lot of girls that are very, very good athletes over there at Lindbergh. So we'll check in on that next week, though. I'll be taking a peek at the score, though, live here as the game is going on. Over for the Notre Dame Bulldogs, they got in the win column. They shut out Sykeston 2-0. Another to be expected outcome, in my opinion. They did drop a couple games early to the Parkway schools, South and Central. But as far as Southeast Missouri goes, outside of Jackson, there's really been nobody come up into that top 2 very often to touch Notre Dame, who's been a step behind the Indians, I think, the last few years overall. But they have a strong team again this year. Notre Dame does. They're led by a good senior class, not a huge senior class, but a good senior class. Maya Tebow and others coming back this year, playing well here early. So Cape Central, though, they did fall to Windsor 8-1 here early in the season. Tough start for the Tigers. And then Notre Dame, I mentioned, has got the winning ways rolling now. Pick up 2 wins. Their second win over Marion, Illinois. So nice 2-1 victory there over Marion. And then no soccer the back half of this past week. So a short week of soccer for girls. Have a lot more action, though, coming up this week. In boys golf, we do have some a couple results here to talk about. I've seen some teams post online with how they did in the Sykeston quad match. I know Notre Dame was victorious there. They won over, it was Dexter, Sykeston, and Jackson were all participating there. Notre Dame got the first in the team total. Graham McMullen for Notre Dame finished third, shooting a 77. Then on Tuesday, Jackson won their quad match with a team score of 151. And then Wednesday, all these teams just played each other over and over and over again this past week. Saxony, Advance, Notre Dame, and Cape Central all competed at Bent Creek, and Notre Dame won the team competition and had the first place finisher Weston Edwards, who came in at a 34. So a strong week for Notre Dame. Jackson getting in there and playing well in their home quad match. So a nice start in boys golf. Jackson is a team who has been pretty strong the last several years. They failed to qualify as a team last year. I know that's something they're trying to rectify this year. I'll talk about them a little bit more later. In boys tennis, had a few matches this past week. Jackson came out, shut out Festus 9-0. Notre Dame got a nice win over a rival Farmington team. I think, if memory serves, is Farmington team that, beat them out in the team competition this past year. I think at Notre Dame in the playoffs. Notre Dame was a 1 seed, so a little revenge on the mind of the Bulldogs there. They've had a strong start to the year. Jackson, then, they took on Staley. This is all over at Cape Central. These teams all played each other. Jackson beat Staley 6-3, and Cape Central beat Staley 6-3. So Staley, long way to drive. But they come down here, get beat a couple times, one by Jackson, once by the Tigers. Then Notre Dame went to work, blew out an overmatched Arcadia Valley team 9-0, and then Jackson was back in action on Wednesday. 3 consecutive days of tennis for them. They beat Oakville, shut them out 9-0. Nice win there for the Indians. And then boys volleyball. I don't have all the results from this past week. They weren't all on the Misha website, which kind of just is what it is. Notre Dame had a couple of ball games. Saxony was off all week. And I do, though, something I didn't mention last week, I have the results for Francis Howell tournament. Both teams went up and played at Francis Howell about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now at this point. Notre Dame went 1-2 in the tournament. They defeated Chaminade, ended up losing to Francis Howell Central and Lutheran South. But the Crusaders of Saxony, they performed quite well. They went 3-2. They shut out Parkway South. They beat Henry Clay, which I think it's in Kentucky. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. They beat Henry Clay 2-1, and then they beat Collinsville 2-0. And then they went on to lose to York, which is a big private school up toward Chicago, I believe. I've seen York play football against like East St. Louis, people like that before. York beat them 2-0, and then Althoff Catholic there across the bridge in Illinois beat the Crusaders 2-0 as well. So nice start to the year for Saxony. And then finally, jump to one of my favorite things to talk a lot about here on this show, and anybody that will let me, is the track and field season we're having. Not Jackson. Cape and Notre Dame, they went over to the Dexter Invitational. Some decent competition over there at Dexter. Dexter obviously was there. Poplar Bluff. You had, I believe Carly Ann Kosu was there from Chaffee. So there was some good competition for our local runners, local jumpers, things like that. So I'll run through some of the results that kind of stood out. I'm not going to go, event by event or anything, but I'll talk about the ones that stood out. First and foremost, starting with the boys, Hudson Dennis. Hudson Dennis ran really well. I mean, this is a kid who can do do it all. I mean, he's an unbelievable swimmer, right? I mean, he's state champ and it's one of the best in the state in swimming. I mean, he didn't play basketball this year. If he did, he would have been the starting center for Notre Dame boys basketball and one of the best players on the team. He could go play football somewhere and start tomorrow. He is also a just phenomenal athlete out here running in the sprints for Notre Dame. He got first in the 100, 11:01 for him, which is a PR in the 100. And then 200, he PR'd there as well, went 22.43. So awesome start to the year. He's also a big part, and I believe the anchor on a good Notre Dame 4x1 and 4x2 team. So shout out to Hudson. Also in the 100, Marshawn Pierce, a kid I'm not as familiar with. Haven't seen his name pop up many times for Cape Central. He's only a freshman. He ran 11.10 in the 100. So really nice showing there by a freshman. Shout out to Marshawn. In the 400, the guy who kind of stood out to me there, Elijah Cheek for Cape Central, ran 52.9 in the 400. Elijah Cheek, good 400 runner, good 800 runner. Good 400 here for Elijah. In the 110 hurdles, a guy who is a phenomenal hurdler, one of the best in Southeast Missouri, going to be one of the better ones in the state again this year. Trenton Powell over at Notre Dame. He got a PR in the 110 hurdles. He went 15:03. He got second overall, which is crazy to say, but he was probably a big part of the reason he PR'd in it is because he was chasing Patrick Slack from Poplar Bluff. Slack is the man. He's the best in the state in the 110 hurdles. And, he brings out the best in the competition, especially Trenton Powell. Powell, the definitive number 2 110 hurdler here in the area. And then in the 300 hurdles, he got first there, went 40.65, a little bit off his PR, but a nice run nonetheless for him. And then a couple of PRs in the jumps here for Cape Central. One of them, Demarion Williams, really, really strong start to the year for Williams. I mean, he's hurdled really well. I mean, his first year, I believe, hurdling, he's hurdled really well. And in the high jump, he's really performing, better and better each week, honestly. He jumped 6'6" this week. He jumped 6'4" for the first time, I think, at Notre Dame. So he's performing really well. And another kid I am familiar with from basketball as well, Jaden Johnson for Cape Central. He had a big new PR, 6'4", to come in second place behind Williams. Over on the girls' side, a couple of standout performances. In the 400, Caden Kern, 104.66. Not a state championship type of number or anything like that, but just seeing kind of the versatility that they're using Caden Kern all over the track for them this year, kind of get the most out of her. She's been a good, I believe, long triple and high jumper for them. She's gone over 5'1". She's only a freshman again. Once again, reiterate that. And now they've got her running the 400, pretty solid 400. One of her first 400, I believe, as a high schooler. So good start to the year for her. In the 100 hurdles, Maria Sire, a new PR there from Notre Dame, 16.16. In the 300 hurdles, Grayson Maurer, another girl from Notre Dame, she got first in 49.19. That is a PR as well. And then another girl stood out, another freshman for Cape Central, Scarlett Whitvet, 5 feet 1 3/4 in the high jump. Really, really good jump there. A couple of ninth graders for the Tigers performing really well, Scarlett and Caden. So they've got a lot. They got a lot of talent over there at Cape Central, a lot of young talent. So I'm excited to see how these girls keep progressing on the track. And then a couple things I want to mention from another meet that went down in Farmington was Elijah Cheek, who I mentioned, ran 52.9 in the 400. Came back a couple days later and ran 51.6. So a new PR for him in the 400. So he's a guy who looks like he could be pushing close to that 50 number, maybe pushing to get sub 50 by the end of the year if he keeps rounding into form. Because, I think I mentioned it before, but Cape Central was dropped down in class. They were in the biggest class in the state in track and field. And I believe class 5 they were in last year. This year they dropped down to class 4. So there's a real chance that, it just is what it is, right? You go drop down a class, the kind of competition gets a little bit easier. a lot of these kids have a chance to make some noise once we get into the state meet, but we got some time until then. And then another nice showing here, Jamie Adams Jr., another freshman for the Tigers. He threw 49 feet, 3.5 inches in the shot put, which is a new PR for him. So, shout out to Jamie. He's been throwing really well early in the year. Been really impressed by him. So, I believe that closes the book on this past week. All the little bit of the recap there of everything I mentioned. We're going to jump in. There's a lot more going on this week. Each week, we're getting into the year now, so each week at this point should be pretty packed full of each and every sport. We're on the other side of Easter, and so I believe there's pretty much no more break through the rest of the school year. So it'll be a restless time for a lot of students. A lot of teachers will not enjoy the next month and a half, but it will be an exciting time if you are a local sports fan, because there'll be a ton of action here coming up across the board. So, as always, I'm going to implore you to go check out some of these games I'm going to talk about. So, starting on the baseball diamond, I mentioned today Notre Dame is playing Campbell. You'll know the result of that. Check in over there on how that game's going. If it's final yet, no, it's 7-6. Oh goodness! All right, keep an eye on that. Like I said, you know what happened by now, but kind of watching it happen in real time. So we'll jump in Tuesday. We've got a big matchup here, local matchup. Jackson is hosting Notre Dame. Big time rivalry. Excuse me. Big time rivalry between those two schools. I believe Notre Dame last year got their first win over Jackson in quite some time. I'll pull it up here real quick. They beat Jackson. Cape Central beat Jackson. And that was the first time either of those things have happened in quite a while for either team. It was a regular season game was the win. I believe it was at Notre Dame. It was. They won 4-3 last season against the Indians. That broke a streak that went all the way back to 2021, was Notre Dame's last win against Jackson before last year. So they maybe broken through a little bit. We'll see. Both teams are playing pretty well here early in the season, so should be a good matchup. It's going to elevate both teams. Jackson, though, will be the home team, so get out, check that one out. Should be a really fun matchup. Like I said, some talented squads. Notre Dame playing pretty well here early in the year, but going to Jackson, game's going to be at 4:30. It'll be a tough contest over there. And Notre Dame did beat Campbell 7-6, by the way, so we know how that ended. Cape Central, they will be hosting a ball game Tuesday as well. They're taking on Windsor. And then Saxony goes on the road, a private school showdown there for them. They're taking on St. Vincent. Should be a good little rivalry there. Some shared students between those two places, I've heard. So should be a good little rivalry between those two teams. Saxony, good start to the year. They're hitting the ball, so we'll see if that's able to continue against a pretty good St. Vincent group. Then Wednesday, so the very next day, a lot of teams right back at it. Cape is on the road at Seckman. Seckman, pretty talented this year. They've got some individual kids who are going to be playing at the next level. A lot of them are young, so that could work in Cape's favor. But overall, good group up there for the Seckman Jaguars. Then Notre Dame, they have a district ball game against Dexter. That'll be at Dexter. So big time implications there. If Notre Dame's able to win that, I mean, they almost all but certain lock up a 1 seed in their district. Obviously, we still have a month and a half until we get there, but they've already beaten, I believe, Fredericktown. Dexter, if they win this game against Dexter, then they'll have that victory. They don't play Donovan, I believe. Let's see who else is in their district. So they got Kennett. So it's Kennett. If they beat Dexter and Fredericktown, I mean, then they're in the driver's seat. So a big opportunity here for Notre Dame to put themselves in a good spot for late in the season. And then finally, Saxony goes on the road to Charleston. Should be a good small school matchup there. Thursday, Jackson will be hosting that North County team that did beat Cape Central earlier in the year. That was last week, 8-4. So could be a good battle. North County pretty consistently solid across most of the board in all sports. And then Cape Central, they're going to go on a little bit of a road trip. They are taking part in the Missouri River Festival. So this will be going on at Jefferson City. They will be taking on 4 different teams up there. On the 9th, it will be, look, I don't know how to pronounce this correctly. Fatima, I don't know. Fatima. My bad. I'm not from Central Missouri. And then on the 10th, they'll be playing a couple of games. They take on St. Elizabeth, which I don't know much about in baseball. I know they're pretty darn good, especially in girls basketball. They just won a state title. And then also on the 10th, they're taking on the host Jeff City, the Jays. And then on the 11th, Cape Central will be taking on Capital City over there from Columbia. So should be a good matchup. Some pretty good-sized schools for Cape Central to play, especially Jeff City and Capital City. So should be some good contest for the Tigers, good competition. Kind of get out of the area, see something new. Always a good experience. And then Friday, April 10th as well, Notre Dame is going on the road to Farmington. Going to be a tough battle. I mentioned it. Farmington pushed Jackson a little bit this past week. They held Cape to 1 run. Unfortunately for Farmington, they scored 0. So shout out to Chapman Ogles there, pitching really well in that ball game. But so Notre Dame will have a tough test going on the road to a good Farmington team. And then finally Saxony, another private school showdown. They'll be hosting St. Pius on Friday. And then the final matchup, boys baseball, you've got Jackson at Lutheran St. Charles. They play a doubleheader. First game starts at 11 a.m. Obviously, the next one will be whatever it is, 30 minutes or so after that. So should be a good one. Road contest. Jackson plays a handful of road doubleheaders this year. Your boy might be calling one of them in a couple of weeks. I'll let you know, though, as we get closer to that. So then we got girls soccer. I mentioned we have a couple of games going on as I'm talking to you. Jackson is at Lindbergh. It's a district game. Jackson has lost the last 2 meetings they've played against Lindbergh. We'll talk more about it, though, as after next week whenever we know the outcome, as well as Cape Central at Perryville. So then Tuesday this week, Notre Dame goes on the road. They're taking on another Southern Illinois team in Carbondale, taking on the Carbondale Terriers, I believe. Should be a good one. Then Saxony is hosting St. Louis Christian. It's taking on every denomination. Taking on St. Louis Christian. That'll be Tuesday, April 7th. Then Wednesday, you get the big-time showdown I talked about a little bit ago. You get presumably the 2 best teams in Southeast Missouri. Jackson hosting Notre Dame Wednesday, April 8th. Should be a really fun environment. Usually, when it comes to soccer, it's the biggest rivalry here in Southeast Missouri is south of Perryville, I guess. Down here in Southeast Missouri, it's Jackson and Notre Dame, boys soccer, girls soccer. The fans always show out. The students always show up. And, to be at Jackson, game starts at 6:30. So get out there. Go check it out. Should be a good one. Jackson, it's been a little bit of a one-sided rivalry, all right? Jackson has won 7 consecutive against Notre Dame between these two teams. Their last home loss to Notre Dame for the Indians all the way back in April of 2014. So 2014, it's 12 years ago. Most, if not all, of this team wasn't even in school yet. So pretty crazy to think about. So it's been a long time since Notre Dame's gone to Jackson and beaten them, but big opportunity here for the Lady Bulldogs. But I know Jackson will have a lot to say about it. Then Thursday, the lone game is Saxony hosting Sykeston, so a good opportunity to beat a SEMO conference opponent. Sykeston, decent squad. I mean, they lost 2-0, obviously unable to get on the board against Notre Dame, but they're going to be competitive here against Saxony, I feel. And then finally, Friday, big day of girls soccer. I know Saxony, Cape, and Notre Dame are all going to be playing in, I believe they're all playing in Carbondale, something called the Fralish Cup Showcase. At the time, I don't know Saxony or Cape Central schedule. However, I do have Notre Dame schedule for it because on Friday, they'll be taking on Mascoutah, Illinois. That is, go to St. Louis, go across the river, go east, and a little bit northeast, you find Mascoutah, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And then Saturday, they will be taking on Collinsville, also from that East St. Louis region. So best of luck. Notre Dame is just going to play all of Southern Illinois, I think, by the time the season's over with. So shout out to those girls. A lot of long road trips over there to Southern Illinois. These two will be over in Carbondale. And then Jackson, not going to Carbondale. They'll be hosting Farmington on Friday, April 10th. Big district game as well. Should be a winnable game for the Indians, but, I haven't really talked about it. I haven't gotten too far ahead looking at, districts, things like that. It could have been, I had an opportunity, I guess I could have done it early in the year to kind of preview what's to come in the future, but just kind of let it get to us here. But I don't know if who all listening is very familiar with girls soccer in the state of Missouri or anything like that, but Jackson is, I haven't looked at all the districts, right? And haven't put too much work into it, but I'm just going to blindly say Jackson is in kind of the group of death, if you will, as far as districts go. So, Jackson, really, really good squad every year. They're winning 15-plus games. They are the model of consistency. Let me look at this. Yeah, last year they won 15, before that 17, 17, 17, 19, 17, 19, 17, 19, 20. So, this Jackson team for the last decade has averaged, 18 wins a season. But right now they are in a tough spot with the rules of, private schools. If you win, you get moved up, things like that, because now in their district, I know I'm talking a lot about this, but in their district, you've got Corhay Zoo and you have Narix Hall, both private schools who are unbelievable. Then also in public school wise, you've got, Farmington, Fox, Lindbergh, I talked about, really good team. Oakville, also one of the best teams in St. Louis. They are 4-0 right now, undefeated. And then Seckman, who is struggling here, but they're back in the day, that was who Jackson was seeing a lot of times in these district championships. So brutal district for the Indians. And why do I say that? So Narix Hall. Let's click on Narix Hall. The Markers. Don't ask me why that's their name. So Narix Hall, from 2019 to 2024, they were in the state championship game every single year. They got second, and then they finally broke through and won the state title in 2024. And then they got moved in, and then the reason they didn't go back is because they got moved into Jackson's district. And who else is in Jackson's district? Corhay Zoo is in Jackson's district. Why is that important? Well, let's look at Corhay Zoo. Corhay Zoo is currently 5-0 with a goal differential of 23-4. Corhay Zoo, they have now won back-to-back state titles here in Class 4. And not to mention, Corhay Zoo, why are they so good? Why have they won back-to-back state titles? Well, they have a girl on their team who is the best player in the United States of America. No, I'm not being dramatic, because she did win the Gatorade National Player of the Year in girls soccer. So in the United States, she is the best player. She plays on the United States U16 team, U17 team. She's flying all over the globe to go play these events and things like that. Maddie DiMaria is unbelievable. She's been the player of the year in the state of Missouri the last 2 years as a freshman and as a sophomore. So yes, as a sophomore, she won the National Player of the Year. So you just put her out there, and it's going to make things really, really difficult for everybody else. But then you add in a bunch of other girls who are unbelievable, huge senior class, huge junior class. A bunch of these girls going to be playing at the next level. Some of them are basketball players, things like that. So big athletes, things like that. It's going to make life a little bit difficult. So not going to say there's no chance of ever, breaking through, but we're in a period right now where it's going to be really, really tough for Jackson to kind of get to that next level. But it's so far down the road. We'll get there when we get there. So, boys tennis. Get less dramatic here. Boys tennis, you've got Tuesday, Notre Dame at Dexter, a winnable few games there for Notre Dame. I wouldn't surprise me if they sweep over the Bearcats. Then Wednesday, Cape Central is hosting Farmington. Important for district ramifications. And then Thursday, Jackson is at Cape Central. Jackson has won 4 straight team overall wins against the Tigers. So definitely one to look out for. Cape Central having a good year. on the tennis courts. I'm trying to think about the most fun way to say that. But Cape Central, really, really strong start to the year. They're 3-1 as a team. They lost 6-3 to Notre Dame, their first outing. Outside of that, they haven't lost. Notre Dame undefeated right now. Jackson undefeated right now. They sit at 6-0 as a team. So what did they do? No, they tied once, I know, at the Courts for Cancer. That's not listed on here. But yeah, I know they tied once. They split with Poplar Bluff. But overall, I mean, a really, really strong start to the year here in Southeast Missouri. So it should be a great contest between those two teams. And then on Friday, you've got the over at Cape Central, the Show Me Tennis Tournament, Cape Central will be playing in the Show Me Tennis Tournament up in St. Louis. So Cape Central kind of be challenging themselves, playing a tough schedule here, going up north and playing in the Show Me Tennis Tournament. And Jackson on the 8th, I mentioned they're hosting Poplar Bluff on the 8th. Going to be a really, really tough game for them. Tough contest for them. Poplar Bluff undefeated. They split earlier at Dexter, so should be a nice preview of kind of how these teams stack up against each other. I believe, no, they're not. So Jackson is alone in Class 3, District 1. That means Poplar Bluff down there in Class 2, District 1. Jackson in a really, really stacked district for boys tennis, man. You got Burroughs, MICDS, SLU, Oakville, Lindbergh, Kirkwood. So brutal out here. Then finally, Notre Dame on Saturday. They'll be playing over in Poplar Bluff tournament. So best of luck to our local teams, making some road trips around the area and up to St. Louis even. So good luck to all those boys. And then in boys golf, Tuesday, you've got the Dexter tri-match. I know Jackson will be over there. Saxony will be up at Farmington as well on Tuesday. Wednesday, you have Farmington Invitational where Notre Dame, Cape, and Jackson will be. So a very busy week. All of our local teams see each other all the time throughout the year. So should be a good matchup. Should be some good golf played by all those boys. They always push each other and really kind of bring the best out of each other. So best of luck to each of them. In boys volleyball, should be a busy week for our two local teams. But it starts off with a big-time matchup between the two of the teams, Notre Dame and Saxony. It will be at Notre Dame, which is notable because last time these two teams played was at Notre Dame. Saxony ended Notre Dame's season in a big upset. Notre Dame was the 1 seed in the district. Saxony went over there as, I believe, the 4 or the 5. Upset Notre Dame, won that 3-2 to end their season. And Notre Dame will be hosting St. Mary's Southside Wednesday before both them and Saxony go up to, across the river over East St. Louis, Althoff Catholic, playing in a tournament there Friday and Saturday. Then jump over to the Oval Track and Field Tuesday. You've got a pretty big local meet over at Jackson, the Bob Sink Invitational, named after, local coach Bob Sink, who worked at Cape and Jackson throughout the years, worked at Cape for a long time as a football coach, was a track coach at Jackson when I was in high school. Cool memorial to Coach Sink, naming a tournament here over at Jackson in his honors. I know Saxony, Notre Dame, and Jackson will all be over there. I don't believe Cape Central will be. I don't believe they will be participating in the Jackson Invitational, but it should be some pretty good local competition. It's not going to have a ton of heavy hitters per se in it, but overall should be a good meet. Get a lot of people out there, get a lot of people opportunities to run. It's going to be a big meet as far as probably number of kids in it, because you're going to have JV boys and girls, varsity boys and girls in every single event. So it's going to be a lot. I believe the running starts at 2 or 2:30. I believe the field events start at 1. So yours truly might be making an appearance. No promises, but might make my way out there. Might get in a little bit late after work, but I'd like to go check it out. And then skip to Friday this week. Jackson boys and girls are going to go their separate ways. The boys will be at Eureka in the Eureka Invitational. Should be some tough competition there, as well as the girls who are going to Webster Groves for their girls Invitational. So both teams going to be seeing some really, really tough competition from St. Louis and all over the state. emerging there and at Eureka or Webster Groves, depending on boy or girl. And then Saturday, Cape Central and Saxony will be down here at the Cape Invitational. So good opportunity to get out and see some of our local athletes competing. I'm not sure yet who all individually is going to be competing in the meet, but should be a good opportunity to go support some kids, man. It's a good venue. Cape Central has, obviously, they have a huge stadium. The track is there in the football stadium, so you have unlimited seating for track and field there. So that's really, really nice. It is pretty spread out. If you want to see your individual who is a field athlete, you might have to kind of go around over here to watch this throw or these jumps or things like that. But it is what it is. If you're a track parent, you're used to it. So get out, go check it out. Should be really, really fun. Should be a good day of track and field. And then finally, I believe the last event to talk about, Notre Dame is going up to St. Louis for something called the All Catholic Invitational. It is exactly what it sounds like. Every private Catholic school, I know in the eastern part of the state, I don't know if anybody else, like Springfield Catholic maybe, Rockers maybe, or Jesuit, they count, I think. Sorry. So the All Catholic Invitational should be brutal competition because you're going to have, this, oh gosh, I don't know. Let me think here. You're going to have the Viannis of the world, SLUs, I guess, the entire Metro Catholic Conference, right? So CBC, Vianney, Chaminade, look at DeSmet. I don't teach a theology class here, okay? So it should be really, really good competition. On the girls' side, then you're going to have the St. Joe's and Cor Jesus and Eric's Halls, et cetera, of the world as well. So very cool. Should be a fun meet. Really, really interesting, in my opinion, to kind of check out what they're going to have going on there. So should be fun. Should be tough competition up there for Notre Dame. I'm excited to see how they compete at a really, really high level. Guys like I mentioned, Hudson Dennis in the sprint, see how that 4x1, 4x2 team kind of competes against some big dogs up there, the Metro Catholic teams. Trenton Powell in the hurdle, see how he does up there. I mean, I think he has a chance to really make some noise if he's running. Track and field's weird. You've got to build your guys up and then kind of cool them back down, build them up, cool them down, keep them healthy, because at the end of the day, all that matters is being healthy when it comes to qualify for state and advancing through the rounds into state and try to put yourself, your team, whatever it might be, in the best position possible to, perform at your very, very best. So best of luck to everybody competing this upcoming week. I say it all the time, get out, go watch whatever it might be that tickles your fancy. If, you're like, hey, I've just never seen boys tennis before, go check it out. It'll be fun. We'll see what the weather's like. No promises. Yeah, weather should be good all week this week. It'll be a little cool Tuesday, but, winds, you got highs in the high 70s, in the 80s on Saturday, Sunday. So the lows only are, mid 50s, things like that. So it should be great. Great weather, great spring sport weather. Get outside, go watch whatever, soccer, baseball, tennis, track. Go check it out. Should be a good time. Go watch some of these athletes compete. Go reward them, the coaches who spend a lot of time away from their family, thing like that as well. So that does it as far as what all we've got going on. I will have a couple of extra things to talk about here. A couple of things I saw. 2 Jackson wrestlers made their college decisions official. They signed. It is Grady Rice going to Drury and Cade King going to Maryville. So teammates are now going to be cross-state rivals, both in Division II there. So in-state rivals. Should be cool. And then Caden Shaw, golfer for the Indians as well. He signed to go to Wisconsin Stevens Point. So congrats. So Grady, Cade, and Caden signing for college. So very, very cool. And then finally, Cam Williams, who I kind of updated throughout the season. He had been, obviously he's a Cape Central graduate. One of the best players in Southeast Missouri the last handful of years. He was playing at Portland this past year. He's a Portland Pilot, way up in the Pacific Northwest. Had a good year. I think he averaged a little over 10 points a game. Averaged over about 4.5 rebounds a game. Yeah, quick pull-up says 10.6 points, 4.7 rebounds. He had an assist per game. He shot over 50% from the field, shot nearly 80% from the free throw line. So really, really good first year in Division I. He'd been he bounced to a couple JUCOs. He played, he started at Moberly, went to somewhere in Texas Valley Community College. So he played at a really high level. His team last season at JUCO level was really, really good. Catapulted him into D1 level. And I'd say he acquitted himself well this year. Performed well. First season playing in D1. He'll have another year at least. The whole eligibility stuff. It's more confusing than trying to figure out which place is Catholic for me. So, he's going to transfer. He's in the transfer portal. That's the entire basis of what I was trying to talk about, not just yapping about nothing. He is in the transfer portal. Look, yeah, I'm a fan. I like the kid personally. I've mentioned it several times in the past. I worked the first 5 years the Cape Girardeau Sportsplex was open, working for the city of Cape, Parks and Rec there. I got to know Cam really well like that. Saw him every day in the gym working out with his dad, a bunch of older guys he was always working with. My wife had him as a student at Cape Central, said he was a great kid, all those things. So, I'm a really big personal fan of Cam. And yes, would it be super cool for him to come and play at SEMO? Obviously, yes. That'd be so fun. He'd be right here. But look, at the end of the day, I don't care where he goes. I just want the best for him. But like I said, I know many of you out there who care would like to see him come play at SEMO. Go watch all of his games, things like that. Another reason to get out to the Show Me Center. And also, SEMO is losing 10 players from last year's roster. So there's a lot of open space, a lot of playing time, a lot of points need to be put back in the barrel there for the Red Hawks. So he'd be a great addition if he does end up down here. If not, I hope the best for him. He could go, he's in the West Coast Conference. He averaged 10.5, 4.5 in the West Coast Conference. The West Coast Conference is a decent mid-major. You've got Gonzaga, who's now leaving, but he played against Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Seattle, San Francisco, a lot of good teams over there who have really, really talented players. And like I said, he acquitted himself well. He had some really, really big individual games. So I'm excited to see where he lands. We've got a few more local kids kind of in the portal. Jadis Jones and Dontrez Williams are both transferring out of Lindenwood, or at least their names are in the portal. We'll see if they actually do leave or if they go back. But, it's a whole, personal decision. Like I said, I want the kids to do whatever's the best for them. I think they'll all have really, really good opportunities, to play at a high level because all of them are very talented, and it's been a joy to watch them play each other over the year. And it's cool. Get to see all these kids from Southeast Missouri on, the big stage. You can watch all these kids play on ESPN, ESPN Plus, whatever. You can watch every single one of their college games. That fact is really, really cool that they're at that high of a level. So best of luck to Cam and everybody else having to make that decision. I know it's a crazy time in college basketball. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of people kind of floating around in free agency, basically. So best of luck to him. Hope it all goes well. Hope he lands in a good spot for him. And can't wait to watch him. Can't wait to see him succeed no matter where it's at. So best of luck to Cam, and best of luck to everybody else who is making that decision still in high school to play at the next level. So I think that does it for me. I've been watching. Every time I look down, I've been looking at the score of this Jackson-Lindbergh girls game. It's 1-1 in the first half. You guys know what happened. But I've just been peeking down here at my phone to see how it's going. So anyway, thank you guys. Also, I was mentioning that. Shout out to the Abernathys I mentioned earlier. They stream all of the they're going to be streaming all the girls' soccer games throughout the season. All the away games, excuse me. Mr. Jason Abernathy, the father of Chloe and Adeline Abernathy. He streams all the games on YouTube, so go check him out. All the road games. That is at ACMB Sports over on YouTube. ACMB, as in boy, Sports over on YouTube. I've watched the last few games they put on the road, so shout out to him, shout out to Mr. Abernathy, shout out to the twins hope they ball out this year. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. As always, like I said, like, subscribe, hit me up, slide in the DMs if you ever have anything to add to anything I've said, anything I missed. Let me know. Any stats or info you have, any insight, let me know. I'll talk about it, mention it. Always keep you anonymous if you so wish, things like that. So hit me up. I appreciate it as always. Yeah, like I said it earlier, get out, go watch some local competitions, what it's all about. That's what I do this for, is to just more exposure for these kids and to just appreciate what they do. Appreciate the coaches, appreciate the kids, because they're the ones working hard, running, sweating, spending hours away from their family, in the case of, like I said, the coaches and the kids also, and taking these long road trips, getting home late at night. So shout out to them. That's what it's all about. Go appreciate them. Go show your support over this next week and go watch some really, really good spring sports and really, really nice weather. So thank you as always for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.